All right, so I have cut a whole bunch of 5 by 5 inch squares. I have some of this sort of light beige background. That's going to be our background. And then I have a whole bunch of different dog prints because I'm kind of a dog person and a cat person. I also have a cat, so I'm not just dogs. But I've got some blue squares. I've got some sort of beige squares. I've got some kind of white squares and some red squares. So I'm going to start off with the blue and the background squares, and I'm going to be trying to do all the pinning, all the pressing, all the suggestions that I see everyone, try to give for perfect half square triangle blocks like this. And we're going to see how much of it and how long it does take me to get, if I ever even get to them perfect blocks. All right, I'm going to move my camera so that you can see me sewing. Okay, so I've got my camera set back up to take a look at my machine. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. So we all struggle probably with having an exact 1/4 inch seam. I do have markings here on the thing, quarter, half, 3/4, 1. And it is exactly a 1/4 inch from my needle. I've measured it, right? So let's take a look and see if we can do a perfect half square triangle, allegedly. All right, so the first thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put my two right sides together. And I'm actually going to mark it. So let's take a look at that first. So the first thing that I'm going to try marking, or first way that I'm going to try marking, is to go exactly from diagonal corner to diagonal corner. And this is the wrong side of the fabric, so I could mark with pencil, heat erasable pencil, or pen, anything like that. And it's on the wrong side, and this is actually the cut line, so you will not see it. And I'm using a super cheap, like just very cheap pencil. And so I drew a line from one corner to the other. Now I'm going to draw a 1/4 inch line on either side of it, because this is how we do half square triangles. All right, I'm lining up my quarter right on my line, and I'm going to draw a second sewing line. I'm making it a little extra dark just so that you can see it. And then I'll go to the other side, see if that'll help a little bit. And I will be a 1/4 inch on the other side. So now I have my corner to corner. I've drawn my sewing line on either side. So let's go back here. We're going to zoom in just a little bit so that when you see, oh, that is exactly right on my sewing line. Now, they say to try to sew very, very little bit on the inside, like one one pencil lead's worth. This pencil lead is not even 1 millimeter, I don't think. So that's what I'm going to try to do, is I'm going to try to sew just on the inside of the drawn line. All right. Oh, get her started. Okay. that did pretty well. See how it's very, very slightly to the inside of my drawn line. All right, let's go to the other side. And we're going to do the same thing for it. Super slightly on the inside of the line. All right. So both my lines are on or inside. Now, this was 5.5 inches we started out. We're going to go to the pressing station here in a second, and we're going to first press everything just as I've sewn it, and the steam helps the thread sort of settle and relax so that it is very even. And it might not look like it, but some might be slightly tighter or some might be slightly looser than others. And so the steam really helps it relax and be as even as possible. Okay, so we are going to square up our square. And that means to make it each of the 4 sides exactly even. Now we should have a 4.5 by 4.5. Now if you can see, it's a little bit bigger, and that's okay. So what we want to do is we want to make sure our diagonal line, our 45-degree line, is right on that center line. And we are going to first trim these first 2 sides, which there's hardly anything to trim. All right. Flip it around. We're going to do the same thing, making sure we are on the 4.5 by 4.5. I'm standing and looking straight over it. There's nothing to trim there. Almost nothing to trim there. All right, now it should be 4.5 by 4.5, which it is. All right, I'm going to do the other one now. All right, so we're back here at the sewing machine. I've got my squares to 4.5 by 4.5, and I've pressed the seams to the side, to the dark side. Now I'm going to pin them because for the block, for this block, let's see, it is, we're going to sew this seam right here. So we want our, when we sew and we open it up, we don't want it to be like that. We don't want it to be all googly-eyed. We want it to exactly match each other. So we're going to nest these seams, and that means, and I'm going to use a pin. And that means that exactly that they line exactly up so that they will make a perfect point. Okay? By nesting the seams, I can feel it. and I'm going to put a pin in. I love, these are like extra fine glass head pins. Glass head because if I forget they're in there and iron them, it's okay. It's not going to melt. I'm going to make this a little bit more perfect. All right. And they're so fine that they're kind of bendy. But the really good thing about them is when I go to sew, I can sew practically right up to this pin, and it also doesn't distort the fabric as much. It keeps the fabric still pretty flat. All right, so we are going to do our very best to do a very thin See how close I can get to the pin? And it just slips right out because it is so thin. All right, let's see how that looks. So see how those points match each other? All right, now we're going to do another set, just like this. All right, so got my second set sewn, and that looks really good. So I have these two matching sets, and the way they fit together is like this. So that you have bow tie, and two darks in the center, two darks in the light. I already accidentally made one pinwheel, oops, in preparing for everything. All right, so I've got these two, and now we're going to sew them right here, and we are going to have 3 points that we need to line up. So we're going to want to make sure that this looks just as good as this one does, and this one, and the center. And we don't want the centers to be like this. We want them to be exactly perfect, right? So what I'm going to do is, actually, I'm going to take these over to the ironing board, and you see how these two are already pressed in that way? I'm going to go ahead and press this one that way too. And then I'll do the same with this one. So that way these two will nest as well. Okay. So let's line them up again, try them out. Now, when I pin, I'm going to pin at least 3 places. I want these two, you see how they perfectly nest together? That is so that when I sew them, they line up perfectly to each other. So I'm going to put a pin right there. Now, when we get up to this corner, we want these also to nest perfectly. And I will put a pin there. And I like to pin it down maybe a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch, just so that I can actually get a few stitches in before I have to take the needle out, or the pin out. All right, and then this one down here. also going to nest. And pin. So I've pinned in those 3 places. All right. We're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to go back a little bit. See how close I can get to this pin before I have to pull it out? Now, see how the top is starting to be a little bit bulkier than the bottom? You can even see it there on this side. If I were to take this pin out, it could move things so that this is not square anymore. Oh, see if I can get that back together. All right, so I've got my little bulge there. So if I pull them taut, that is kind of what helps bring it together better. I'm going to pull it taut. Get as close to the bottom as possible. And you can back tack if you want to. All right, let's see. See if I mess it up by taking the pin out of the middle. Oh, that looks really good. To the center, looks great. And the top looks great. That side looks great. Looks great. Looks great. All right. And this only took me 15 minutes. Of course, I was recording, but which made it slower, but that's a really long time. That is a really long time. And so when I take it over to the ironing board, you can either, our seams look really nice, but you can either press it to one side or you could press it open. Open might help it lay a little flatter all together. I think that might be better. Just press it open. So I'll probably do that. Okay, so as you can see, I've pressed just that center seam open and all these others to the side, but the center I did open. I feel like that makes it lie the flattest. All right, so we started out with 5-inch squares, and then we sewed 2 of them together to make 2 half square triangles, 2 more 5-inch squares, 2 more half square triangles, sewed those together, and then sewed everything together. With seam allowances, this should measure, 8.5 by 8.5. Let's see how I did. Actually, hold on. Just about dead on the money, right? Oh, there you go. Dead on the money that way. A little short that way. About 1/8 of an inch short. Let's see this way. Wow. 1/8 of an inch. Too large. It's great. And between 1/8 and about 1/16 of an inch too small. So that means that although it's very close and the points look really good. This is not perfectly square. It might be a little bit like this or like this or like this or all kind of ways. So when I'm going to move it over to the cutting station, and I'm going to put my 4 1/4. See this point right here is the 4" by 4". And so I will put this exact 4 1/4 right in the center, and then I will do any trimming off to the side, and I will flip it around, and I will do it again. 4 1/4, 4 1/4, and I will trim anything. Now, since I'm already short, that means that I didn't really do this block as perfectly as I think I did, which is, frustrating because it took me like 15 minutes. I might be able to trim a little bit off here, and then, but then this way, it's 8, should be 8.5. See, there's nothing to trim that way, so I'm a little short. I'm a little short one direction than the other. Very frustrating. Could I ease it? Maybe. Yeah, very frustrating.